Nominating Committee. And you wanted me to remind everyone that this is going to be recorded as nominee?
Yes, correct.
Recorded for what, YouTube, I guess?
Yep, recorded. It's going to be posted on YouTube. We're required to record our meetings.
Okay. Got one candidate. I'll get right into it. And I think Silly was going to join as a guest, maybe. I'm not sure. Anyway, as far as
Jojo, I'm having a little bit of a difficult time hearing you. Is there any way you can get closer to the mic?
Yeah. Let me close the door.
I don't know if anyone else is having that struggle.
Yeah. I can hear you though. Yeah.
I'll speak louder. So I got one nominee for the chairperson position. That's going to be Sylvia Strickland. But we have 4 candidates for the vice chair. Carla Hasselstein, Beatrice Ammerman, Rabbi Zilberman, and then also, I'm sorry, the 4th one.
I think Carla Hesselheim.
Okay, yeah, so those 4. Oh, I'm sorry. Ginger Shankot is the incumbent, and she also sent in the form, so those 4.
I just want to take a moment to announce that Chair Nair Strickland has joined the meeting.
Okay.
I have a question for the more tenured members of the HRC who've done this before. Do we narrow this down to one candidate for each position and then as a nominating committee and then take those? What has been the process?
You want to chime on this one, Sylvia?
Chair Nair Strickland, your mic is open.
Hi, I was just going to listen, but I guess the process in the past has been there is a slate decided on upon the nominating committee, and that's presented to the entire commission, and then there are nominations to be made from the floor. But usually there's a slate recommended. If I'm wrong, somebody correct me, but that's all I remember, that there's always been a slate. So yes, it would be down to one for each.
And I've been serving for quite a while, and that's the way I do remember it, as the chair narrated. But there have been some times when, if a certain position that we don't put a slate forward, then it can go for vote. But the bylaws say that we need 10 votes, and in order to work more toward a consensus, it has been much more favorable for commission and leadership purposes if we nominate a slate and then take nominations from the floor. I did have a couple comments, Jojo, whenever we're ready, just if we want to consider some other options before moving forward, just something that I've given a lot of thought to, which we might consider. So I don't know when you might like me to mention that, Jojo.
Go right ahead, Teresa, so we can get right into it. That's fine.
As someone who has served on the executive committee before and know the immensity of the work, and also to make sure that, workload is shared. Until a few years ago, when we amended the bylaws, we took away a first and second chair position, vice chair position. So there was a kind of a 3-person, leadership body that divided work in a more equitable manner, because it is a lot of work on leadership for the Human Rights Commission. So that was amended because we had less than numerous candidates coming forward, and had decided, I think it was under Raj Islam's leadership, that was changed. I am delighted to see 4 people coming forward. I think that this is exciting, and especially in the vice chair position, because I think our chair has been doing, an amazing job trying to keep up with the workload. But I think, like I said, as someone who's served on the executive committee in the past, there is enough of a load to share. And so I believe in a robust leadership body where people can, get in touch with the body of the work, and was wondering about the possibility of maybe we would have to change the order of things, but we would need a bylaw change to take it back to reinstituting those positions and then letting the nominating candidates come forward again, but there would be two positions that they could then share the workload, and then you would get a sense of who might want to go forward, in the future, and it would just be a more robust sense of leadership, because I think for people applying for one nominated position, it makes it very, very difficult to narrow it down. We do weed out more leadership, which could help. And the other thing that I think would be a good idea about that is that it lets there isn't so much pressure on one person elevating to, once you're vice chair, it's automatically assumption that you would go to chair, because some people may not want that kind of leadership position. So this was just something to consider that I think would keep the leadership robust, and the barrier of the 10 votes that are needed to secure a position is going to be very difficult, if we were to just let all the nominating folks go forward as for full vote on the floor. I also have been very frustrated with some of our leadership quandaries or stagnation in the past, and I would like to see us support all leaders that are willing to do that body of work. So that was long-winded, but that's kind of my position for why I would like us to consider reinstating the two vice chair positions, first and second vice chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Stanley. Commissioner Burnsworth, I see your virtual hand is up.
Yes, Teresa, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I've been thinking something similar, having heard the commission talk about that in the past. I just think there is so much that faces this commission right now because of everything that's going on in the city. And it's not, we talk about mental health, and we talk about homeless issues, and we talk about what's going on with the police. And if we look at, there are issues now in the school division dealing with equity and that type of thing. I think it's almost too much for two people to handle, and maybe too much for three people to handle. But three certainly shares that workload, and I think it would be a good idea, and I would support that. And as kind of the chair of the bylaws and procedures committee, I would be happy to write that amendment to our bylaws and present it at our next meeting if the nominating committee wished that. I think it would be great. I can't even imagine that there aren't times when Sylvia and Ginger both say, I don't have a life anymore to devote to my family or myself, because there's so much going on. And I truly believe in growing leadership and sharing the wealth of responsibility. So thank you, Teresa, for bringing that up. I think it's a wise and excellent idea.
Thank you, Commissioner Burnsworth. I have a virtual hand up by Chair Nair Strickland. Chair Nair Strickland, your mic is open.
Hi. Yes, I totally agree, and thank you, Joe, for offering to write that. But what happened was it was taken out, and then we were getting ready to vote to put it back in again, and so the wording is already there that Rod Ingram has, and it just kind of stays in limbo. It also says in our bylaws that we can have other officers. It doesn't just say the second. So if you see a need, bring it forward. I didn't mean to interrupt your meeting. I just was going to spy, but thank you. I think it's an excellent idea, and welcome. Very welcome.
Thank you, Chair Nair Strickland. Okay. Did anyone else have any comments?
Hello?
Go ahead, Commissioner Zilberman.
Yeah, how many are interested in the chair position?
Just the sitting chair is the only nomination I got.
Because originally I put on my application both chair and vice chair. This is what I put down. I wrote in both.
I'd have to. I thought I just saw the vice chair for that, Rabbi.
Yeah, I sent it
I'd have to go to
Dominic.
Yeah, I can pull it up. Hold on. And we pull it up and then share it with the group so everyone can see. Oh, where's my share button? Here we go. Okay. And yes, looks like Rabbi Zilberman did select chair and vice chair. So you can see that. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I offer a comment about the process, please? You know, it's very delicate. It becomes very delicate because we're all colleagues and friends, bound by mutual commitment to the welfare of the city. And it becomes difficult when the chair and vice chair, the incumbent ones, want to continue. And that raises all kinds of issues because, you know, I'll be honest with you. I don't want to see votes on the floor where somebody is rejected. And you know, it can be very, very sticky, very, very sticky. And I, you know, went through this process before, didn't get to the floor. I didn't want to do it. And it's a bit awkward. It's really a bit awkward. And yet we are a Human Rights Commission, so we have to be aboard with how we conduct ourselves. So it raises issues. If, you know, the chair and vice chair want to continue, then there will be some kind of friction that is created when somebody else wants to have the same position. Do we have in the bylaws how long the vice chair and chair can serve?
3 terms, isn't it, Dominique?
Yes, it is.
This would be the 3rd term.
Mm-hmm.
So she is eligible to run for this term.
It's my understanding that you can serve 3 years.
Yes.
I was looking it up.
Well, what Teresa's proposing and what I've done a little bit of background check with Dominique on probably still works out because we still have, you know, if you're going to run, we have 2 for the chair and then still 4 for the vice. We can still add that in, and then we can delay the election by a month, correct, Dominique?
So what can happen is if the nominating committee right now wants to recommend putting forth a change to the bylaws that says a second vice chair is, you know, another office, that would have to go out to the committee. We have 2 weeks to do that, 2 weeks prior to the meeting where it would then be voted on, which would be our May meeting. Once that happens, if the committee wants to, and 2/3 of the committee has to vote for the change to the bylaws. If that happens, then the nominating committee can come back to reconvene, send out another email saying, you know, we're opening nominations again for the second vice chair, reconvene to go over what nominees you received for all positions, create your slate, present that slate. You can present it through email before the June election, or you can present it at the June meeting. Oh, Commissioner Stanley, your mic is open.
Sorry. so in other words, it would delay it a month because we would have to, be informed by email that this is what the nominating committee is suggesting. Then those nominating candidates would restate either, which position do they want, chair, vice chair, second vice chair. And I would suggest that at that meeting, each of those people get, a 1 to 2 minute opportunity to speak to the commission, to say why they would like to serve in that position. And then the nominating committee would get the benefit of that session, go back and bring their slate forward at the June meeting. So that's the way I understood it, is we could make the change, but because it's a bylaw change, it has to be made at, officially at the meeting. So it would mean that we'd have to delay the vote until June. Is that, do I correctly understand that, bylaw chair?
Yes, it would mean that we could bring a bylaw change to the May meeting for reflection and review, as long as Dominique got it out to everybody in advance to review. Then June could proceed with an election of officers to take place to commence their office in July.
Question. If we add on a second vice president, that implies, though not directly, that the second vice president would move up when there is an opportunity to become first vice president. And the first vice president, when there is a vacancy in the chair's position, will move up to become president.
Rabbi, that's not the way that the executive...
Yeah, I know it's not the way it's designed, but you can see how people be tempted to move in that direction.
I agree, but I think we are tempted more to move in that direction when we only have one vice chair position. I think by two, the load gets shared, the leadership gets shared, people feel for the body of the work, as Joe's talking about, and the robustness of it. And I think then people have more of an opportunity to, move into either of those positions at any time, and it just makes for a more robust, without that sort of line of succession, automatic experience. That's how I think it can work ideally.
But those who are on the line of so-called succession, though it's not official the succession, have an advantage over newcomers who want to enter into the process and be nominated. So it's you see, the whole thing is very, very awkward when you have more than one person willing to serve either as vice chair or chair. And for the chair, you cannot have two chairs. You can have only one chair. So it's a bit awkward. I mean, it's great that people want to remain in office beyond 2 years, which is really remarkable. I mean, that is beautiful that people want to serve in a very demanding position for beyond 2 years. But you can see how, you have a certain competition that I personally, don't like. And I would try to avoid that kind of a friction that doesn't serve us well ultimately, I believe. But I don't know how to really resolve it, I'll be honest with you, because we have a 3-year opportunity for the chair. And I'll be honest with you, Sylvia does a wonderful job. I'm an admirer, and I have nothing against her, but it will be hard for me to compete and without having Sylvia a certain sense. Well, Zoberman wants my position, So it's awkward. It's really, really awkward. Because I would like to honor her wish to continue for another year. I'm not here to deprive anyone of anything. It's not simple. It's really not simple. And then the vice chair, if there are two, then ultimately there will be a competition for the chair's position, depending upon the personalities involved. So it's a little sticky. And at the same time, I can see why Ginger would want to move up to be chair. She's also wonderful. Thank God we have great people serving. Yeah. And so it presents a certain challenge that, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how to resolve it without some friction that I personally would like us to avoid somehow.
Thank you, Commissioner Silverman. Committee Chair Orencio, any?
Well, myself and Teresa and Rabbi, we did this live a few years ago also, and I totally sympathize, but in light of the fact that the commissioners are all pretty strong-willed people, as we all know, this is part of the territory, and we're going to have an election, and, that's maybe the downside of it, but that's part of the process, you know what I mean? So whether we put the slate out, and essentially it's an open forum also, they could nominate from the floor, you would have an election or not, but that's just part of the gig.
Commissioner Stanley, go ahead.
Thank you, Dominique. For me, it is a role of service. And I couldn't agree with you more, Rabbi Silverman, that it is delightful to know that this many people want to, step up for that level of service. And so that's why I agree with Joe. Just because I'm out here in the community working on all the work that we're doing, it really does take an incredible commitment. And I would like to be as helpful as I can in making a strong leadership team that doesn't feel like we're burning somebody out, to the degree that they're just overwhelmed or that they're even operating in that kind of, stress. So you're right, Israel. I think that it is a dilemma because there are going to be, times that people are wanting to step up, but because of the length of terms of the commission, it just seems to me having a robust team and people being able to extend their time on the commission long enough that if they want to serve in that regard, there is time for them to do that, I would think. And the more positions there are, especially if there's shared leadership, the more of an opportunity that would give people. But I do hear your concerns. I think that they're part of any strong leadership election structure, but I'd like to think that we could just do, the best for the commission because this work is so critical, so critical to the community.
Thank you, Commissioner Stanley. So I guess the next step is now up to the committee on how you would like to proceed.
Dominic, I did need clarity on one thing, depending on how we decide to proceed, but we have to take a whole month to do the bylaw change, which is what Joe just said. We can form by email, but then we can, it can be voted to change if we have a quorum at the May meeting. And would that be possible then, I guess it'd be up to JoJo to be connecting with people saying this is our proposed change and ask those nominating candidates to be considering what they want to do, right? And then could they be asked to speak at that meeting? Because then we have to bring it forward on a slate. And once the slate comes forward, and as long as we take nominations from the floor, the vote can be taken, right? Correct?
So in May, the proposal for this change to the bylaws would go out. Like I said, it has to go out at least 2 weeks before the May meeting. And the May meeting, the bylaws change would be voted on. And if it was accepted by 2/3 of the commission, then the nominating committee can get back together, maybe the following week to, first of all, propose to the whole commission that, hey, we're reopening the nominees for the second chair, vice chair, and then the nominating committee can come back together after that meeting to form their slate, and then the slate can be presented via email or at the June meeting.
Okay, and you can present the slate and vote at the same time.
Right.
Right, that's what we've been doing. I just want to make sure that that's correct. What I would like to see that has not been done in the past couple of years is those people that are willing to step forward for this kind of service at least get an opportunity to tell the commission why they're wanting to serve, like Rabbi Zimmerman says. Otherwise, I think there gets to be the sense that, it's kind of the same people because it's the same people. I think it should be a robust experience in choosing those leaders also. So I don't know how that works, Jojo, but that's what I would like to see when we go back and make this change.
But the only thing with that is if arguendo of the second vice is approved at that next meeting in May, then they still have to set, it's like resetting this at the set. They have to, eliminate by form, unless they're going to make that announcement on the spot that they want to be considered for second vice.
I was thinking that we could at least take their, I don't know how to take their statements unless we add another meeting, other than to say why they want to step forward to serve in maybe in any of the positions that they're wanting to take. I don't know. Can anyone help me out with that?
Since we'd be under kind of a tight time frame this year, could they make those statements just to the nominating committee this year, and then next year extend the process a little bit so that they could do it to the commission? We build that into the timeline for the next year, since this year the timeline is just changing.
Thank you, Joe. That might be a great solving of the dilemma, because I have heard people that are putting their nominations forward. They do want an opportunity to say why they want to serve, sort of some of the concerns that Rabbi Silverman is indicating, and not any back and forth, but just you're right. This year it could be the nominating committee. Next year they might be able to speak to that to the full commission.
Some of us who have served on the commission for a long period of time, and I'm one of them, people already know me. They know me. Carla has not served as long, but people already appreciate her very much because obviously she's also wonderful. I mean, we have wonderful people, and here you enter into this dilemma. And of course, when you have wonderful people, and of course, I'm not saying about myself that I'm wonderful. That's for you to decide. But the difficulty is, you see, when you present a slate, the assumption by the larger body is that the nominating committee was engaged in a profound process, and they are presenting the best slate possible. And if you want to challenge it, it's not a very nice thing to do, because it's going to hurt the reputation of some people and hurt the nominating committee members, etc., etc. And I know, because I've been involved in politics for a very, very long time, as much as you want to avoid politics, it's going to penetrate somehow. And that is something, that I personally, don't welcome personally. I just, I don't have that burning desire to hurt anyone or to hurt myself. In fact, though, as a rabbi, I've been up for votes in my 47 years of ministry. I serve in a system where they vote on the rabbi from time to time, which can be very painful too, but I've survived 47 years in ministry, so it tells you that, I tend to fight for what I believe in, but it doesn't mean that people don't get hurt in the process. And no one in ministry is without pain of the scars of ministry. We don't have bishops, who tell us, you go here, you leave the congregation. It's between the rabbi and the congregation, basically. And then, in our case, we have boards of members, board of trustees, and the ultimate resort of a rabbi who wants to remain in spite of a negative response from the board of trustees is to ask for a congregational vote. And that can create upheaval in a congregation, So you have all kinds of scenarios, and they're all sticky. They're all sticky, actually. And maybe there's no way to avoid it,
Well, and I can.
By the way, I'm going to be. My mom is. I just told Giorgio earlier. My mom is 100 years old plus, and she's in Israel now. And I have to spend the month of June with her in Israel, so I won't be here in June. And it's what can I tell you? I I trust your judgment in the process and all that. And we have really wonderful people. It's just that my expression to serve comes out of my experience of being for so long involved in all kinds of bodies, locally, regionally, and nationally. And so it's not to be construed as an ego thing, but rather a certain sense that I've been around for a long time, and I have learned a few things along the way that I can bring forth.
And based on that input, I could amend what I'm asking and ask that maybe that there either be some sort of short write-up or, being able to address the nominating committee, and it could be done from that standpoint, because anyone is allowed to serve on the nominating committee, and we can bring those. I just think it's been mentioned to me by a few of the nominating candidates that they do wish that there was an opportunity to just have some place of input. And so maybe the nominating committee would be the appropriate place. And maybe, as Joe said, since we're on a short timeline, maybe people can just insert a paragraph or something. I'm just trying to... Which we did
in the past,
We used to do that way back when. You're right.
Yeah, I remember that I submitted, last year we just decided because of the pandemic, leave the things as they are, and we agreed on nominating committee not to make any changes. But 2 years ago, I remember that I submitted a statement in terms of my qualifications, and then it became a little bit sticky. If some of you were there, remember, I know Sylvia was there, Jojo, Teresa was there, and I think that the position of the vice chair, if I may say so, the way it went about, was a bit sticky. But leave it as it may. It's I don't want to create any friction and so forth and so on. It doesn't serve anyone, and I'm not into it. I don't have that kind of desire to. I'm just telling you from the heart, really.
Thank you, Rabbi Silverman.
Dominique, is a testimony of why people want to serve on the form? I don't think it is.
It isn't, but if you want that added, if the committee decides to have that added, I can go ahead and do that.
Would that be okay with everyone to do it that way? Because of, as Rabbi Silverman's saying, we just kind of reinstitute just putting some, even if it's a few lines, and that way the nominating committee is getting some input, which kind of honors that everyone is kind of entering into a level playing field as the nominating committee creates. Okay? Thank you.
But at the same time, I'll be honest with you, I cannot see the nominating committee depriving Sylvia of another year. There is a certain vested interest here to respect the wishes of an incumbent president who has done a wonderful job. And as far as I know, no one ever raised any issues about Sylvia's wonderful leadership, as I see it. Unless I know there's always politics, and I'm not involved in the sticky side of infighting and all that. And I hope we don't have it, but I don't know. I'm not privy to that. But and plus, how the fact that I'm going to be gone in June, I have to be with my mom who's ailing right now. She's 100, and she wanted me to spend the month of June with her. It might be the last time that I would see her. How does that affect the process if I'm still interested in serving?
Well, I don't think, going with this, if you guys do decide to do the second vice chair, once again, if the bylaws are changed by the whole commission, then you would reconvene after that May meeting to form your slate and then present that slate through email or at the June meeting and then vote.
I leave June 1st and I'll be back, I think, July 2nd, something like that. So I can still participate in any discussion in May. But right. I will not be here for the June meeting.
It would just be the vote that you wouldn't be for, Israel, because if the bylaws would change, people would then resubmit, the nominating committee would make that decision to bring forward a slate, and it would just be a vote in June. And with the 10 votes required to move toward consensus, it is, as you've said, better not to turn it into, some type of competition that then spirals us downward. It's, because 10 votes is a lot of votes. So I think you would still be, you'd be there for everything but the vote itself. And I don't know if you could participate from virtually, Dominic?
Well, if he can.
Sure he could, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
because it'll be just like how it is now, or how our meetings have been since we are eligible, allowed to have virtual meetings right now with that statute from the governor. So it would still apply.
So full participation, Rabbi Zimmerman, for you.
Yeah, thanks. It's really, it's a tough thing. It's really a tough thing. And by the way, how many years do I have now on the committee, Dominic?
Oh, let me see. I have to pull that up.
maybe I have to depart. So what I'm saying is only academic. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure your term isn't ending anytime soon.
Oh, really? Okay, thank you. That's good. That's good.
Yes. So your term does not end until March of next year, 2022.
Mm-hmm. And I can be reappointed at that time?
Yes, you are eligible for another reappointment.
Okay. I really want to.
Another 3 years on top of that.
I want to respect everyone, and since I went through this experience before, and I saw some weaknesses in the process at that time 2 years ago, but I would not serve my community well if I would not present myself as a candidate. I'm sure that my Jewish community that really doesn't tell me what to do. It's like I'm independent in my decisions of what I say on the commission and so forth and so on, and they don't tell me to run and not to run and all that. I after being a rabbi for so long and being very prominent in the community, that I owe it to my community to present my credentials for leadership positions. So that's something else, that you may not be aware of, but that drives me too, to apply and so forth and so on.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Zimmerman. So,
and I'm sorry to make it so complicated. It's easier when let's say the president, vice president retire or whatever, But when that does not happen, you can see how you have these dilemmas. And I talk from the heart with you. I'm not hiding anything,
And I do want to say, Rabbi Zilberman, that I appreciate that we have been grappling and struggling. I too, having served on the executive committee and really committed to making sure that we continue to have really great leadership. I'm an example of how you can do your service, move off, and still be a part of the whole. Showing the different models of how people can do it differently. But you're right. When we have good leaders and seasoned leaders, when they're doing a good job, we should have a process by which they can stay, and we should have a process, that also welcomes others. So I feel like we're getting there, and I just appreciate grappling with it. But I hope that some of these suggested changes will take us, to a better place. And that's my sense.
But does that mean if we have a second vice president, that second vice president will be inclined to move to become first vice president? And when one is a first vice president, there's a natural inclination to want to be the chair, is the next step. That usually is the process, unless someone is not willing to move forward. But usually when you are a vice chair, you want to be chair.
It can work that way, or it cannot. You can step forward in service into different positions and do your part and then move over and make room. Because of the length of the commission service, if you desire to do that, I think you could serve and then move up. You might serve just 1 year and move up. I think a lot of things can make for different equations. But you're right. The less that it is competition as much as a process where we discern the best leadership for this moment. I think it's the kind of role I would like to see the nominating committee play and have the best bylaws to do that.
And we really wouldn't have to say first vice chair and second vice chair. They could be co-vice chairs. So there is truly a level
so you will have now,
responsibility.
You will have three. You want to have Ginger will let's say Ginger wants to remain as a vice chair, and then she will just have one more co-vice chair. Is that what we're talking about?
That would be fine.
No, but that's what you think we're talking about? Is that the consensus? We're not talking about three vice chairs, just about two, right?
Yeah,
two. And they could either be called co-vice chairs or first and second vice chair.
Of course, gives more co-chairs. That gives a more equal opportunity for the second vice chair, for future moves.
True, Robert Overman, it does. So
I've been too much involved with these things at the national level. I represented the American Jewish community. I was the interfaith chair for the entire 6 million Jews in America for 5 years. So I've been involved with. I know too much about these things, and and I love you all, and yet I know that if I would not strive to want to present myself as a leader, I don't serve myself well, and I don't serve my own community well, because I think there's a certain expectation that after being on the commission now for 7 years or so, that I would want to move up to a leadership position.
So I would take that friendly amendment if the rest of the nominating committee agrees that if you think it makes for more collegial and not a hierarchical expectation, we would have a chair. The bylaws change would request a chair and two vice co-chairs. Yeah,
that to me makes better sense. Yeah. That opens up the process a little bit more, that opens up, yeah.
Right.
So that would be my proposal, and then, I don't know how I make that motion.
Okay. So you got a motion from Commissioner Stanley to amend the bylaws to have a chair and two vice co-chairs. Anyone want to second that motion?
I will.
Okay. We have a second motion from Commissioner Burnsworth. So any discussion on the motion on the table, which is to amend the bylaws to have a chair and two vice co-chairs?
I just want something Rabbi said that I want to make sure is not a given. He said that if Ginger wants to stay, she would be one of the vice chairs. That's not a given. We have 4 candidates, and I believe this committee will select from those candidates the best 2 to put forward to the whole HRC, and the same for chair. If we have 2 people,
can you foresee not having Ginger back as a vice chair? No, just between us, because we all
her term is a 1-year term. Her term is really a 1-year term. So if this board...
her term is a 1-year term.
Yes, they can be repeated for 3 years, but they are 1-year terms.
Right, but she wants to continue. Ginger wants to continue, I assume.
But she still has to be elected into that position.
Right. But people have been aware of her, participation and leadership, and she's also highly qualified. Well,
I'm not saying she's not. I'm just saying that I don't want to anywhere in the minutes or anywhere in a recording saying that is a given. It's not.
No, it's not a given, but I assume that the commission, when it votes, she would have a certain edge, obviously, and it's understandable. It is understandable, and she's also a strong leader with good credentials, and you see, it becomes a little sticky, but maybe there's no way to avoid it. You can maybe smoothen the rough edges, which in a way by having 2 vice chairs, there's a way to do it, and but the bottom line is we have some good people, so that's good. Yeah, that's good. Carla, everyone, Joe, Carla, you all are good. I mean, everyone is good. Everyone's good, I give you all my vote, Yeah.
And Rabbi, I am so grateful for your investment in this process. I do have to get some clarity now, Joe. Thank you for being the bylaw thinker. Now that it's co-chairs, it used to be it was clear you were putting in for first vice chair or second vice chair. Now do people just put in for a co-chair position? And then two are selected? Is that as far as the nominating slate? Is that how it works? Because I was kind of thinking that people could apply for, the different positions so that, but this kind of doesn't break it out that way, and I wasn't thinking about that when I...
Well, you can define, they would apply for the same job and then the same title, but then the leadership team then could divvy up responsibilities so that they had different responsibilities, therefore lightening that load. For example, one may be the vice chair who oversees programming and that type of thing. The other may be a vice chair who works more closely with committees.
And I can easily see that being delegated as that executive committee decides. That's all fine. What I'm trying to look at is the problematic part of the election. So you have your election. The way our bylaws are written, each position needs 10 votes.
Well, just to give you guys some clarification, in the previous, I guess when this second vice chairperson was part of the officers, it did say in the bylaws that these past bylaws, a second vice chairperson.
You see what I'm saying? So when we go to vote, when people go to vote, if we put forward a slate, a slate usually is just an endorsement by the nominating committee. So if we put forward two people of the four people, it seems like they're going to need a delineation somehow, is what I'm saying. Otherwise, when it comes to voting, you pick two. Yes, you could say pick two, but we would be suggesting a slate. So you could say, this is the slate, so you vote for those two, or you bring a nomination from the floor. I'm trying to process that in my head.
Someone told me that it never happened with our commission that somebody was voted from the floor, that they followed the recommendations of the nominating committee. This is what I was told. I mean, there can be exceptions, but I was told there's no precedence for that.
But we always want to make sure that just like what Joe just said about the expectation of just because you're serving in a position that you serve the same thing with nominating from the floor always has to be an option, Israel. And
yeah, of course. No, you keep the option open, but realistically, right. The chances are very limited, very, very limited.
I'm not concerned about the vote from the floor. I'm trying to follow out a mapping in my head. The way we've done it is each person that gets voted on has to get 10 votes. So if we're voting on a slate for co-chairs, if they're together, then I guess they both get 10 votes, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Jojo.
That's the nominating committee recommends only two, which would be also difficult, I mean, Ginger is probably a given, I would think, personally, and then someone else will have to. The nominating committee will have to recommend somebody else. So it's
Well, it could cause a problem if the body doesn't agree with the two we select. They might want the third or fourth, and then you have to vote, and then the vote gets split 4 different ways. You don't get anywhere close to 10, and we're stuck, right? Which is why we're trying to propose this to avoid that.
Right.
So on that level, I kind of agree with the delineation because you're right. Now it's like a rating kind of thing. Like you're picking the two that you want to select versus it's select 2 out of 5.
So as long as Israel, if we just said still it was the first and second vice chair, but they're not hierarchical, they're in service delineated by their jobs, then that keeps those two positions in like we said, equal, but people still apply for one of the
But that has to be clarified. That has to be made clear from the beginning.
Here's another point. It doesn't say first vice chairperson, second. It just says vice chairperson, second vice chairperson.
Oh.
Well, and when you vote, if we put up a slate, we would vote for chair. Then we would vote for, and I don't care if we do it alphabetically, we would vote, if we had JoJo up for vice chair, then we would vote, ask people to vote on JoJo. Then we would ask people to, if Teresa was the other person we put up, we would have people vote on Teresa. And if those two receive 10 votes, then we're done. If we didn't, then we would have a nominee. If there was a nominee from the floor, then we would vote for that person, is the way I would think we would do it.
Okay, then it works, because they each get voted separately. Okay.
Okay, so in that case, you want to amend your motion?
I don't have to amend it. It seems like it's not problematic at all, because each we just vote on two separate co-chairs, and people just then their nomination is for a co-chair position.
Okay, so the nomination on the floor is to amend the bylaws to have a chair and two vice co-chairs. Okay, any other discussion with the motion on the floor? Okay, with that, I'm going to go.
We need Solomon. We need the wisdom of Solomon, and he wanted to divide the babe into two halves, but that was not didn't make sense, of course.
Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead with a roll call vote. Commissioner Burnsworth.
Yes.
Thank you. Committee Chair Arisia.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Stanley.
Can I unmute myself? Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Stanley. And Commissioner Doberman.
Yeah.
Okay. Unanimously, the motion to amend the bylaws to read as chair and two vice co-chairs has been approved 4-0.
And then, Dominique, do we need to do anything to amend the form? To have a small written.
Right. If you guys want to just want me to go forward with amending the form, I can go ahead and do that, and then send it to you guys to look over and approve from there, and we'll follow the process with the new form.
Then it would be ready once we voted on if we needed it or not.
Right. Exactly. So, hold on. It sounds like Riley's open.
Yeah, here I am. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. So, I will go ahead and change the form, and we'll go from there. Looks like the bylaws vote will happen in May. Got to talk to Rod about making the change, and then get that out to the commission to look at.
And Dominique, can you send me the wording for that second vice chair just so I can see it?
Okay. Sure.
And I did want JoJo. I would love to have this nominating committee convey how excited we are about the robustness and, as Rabbi Zoberman said, the competency and enthusiasm, that we think that this is an exciting thing for the commission, and that shared leadership with all that's in front of us is so critical. So I just want it to seem. And I want people to know how I just am very impressed that this many people are willing to step up to serve in this kind of extremely, hard work.
And also in a way that will all be tested, And I know that it just so happens when you are the chair, you are tested a little bit more than the others, because, by virtue of being chair, you potentially can do things that no one else can do. And that makes a huge difference. That can make a huge difference, as I see it. A huge difference, huge difference.
All right. So is there anything left to discuss, Committee Chair?
No, I guess, and we'll doodle. I should have pretty good available dates after the next meeting, and we can meet within a week or two. And just get going. Thank you, Dominic, for all your help.
All right. You're welcome. Okay. Anything else for the good of the group?
And Dominic, I'll try to get this to you tomorrow.
You qualify to be presidents of the United States of America, as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks, Dominic.
You're welcome. And yeah, Joe, I'll work with you, me, and Rod. 'Cause I think Rod would have to review it as well, just to make sure it's legally sound.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Okay.
Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Have a great
Thank you.
evening.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.